So he had, yeah, I don't want to. I got into the crowd tonight. Anyway, we have we had a lot of Gemara. Now let's get back to back to our regularly scheduled programming.
Everyone said they think it's the guy, but
It's not too bad. It's not too bad. It's pretty reasonable daf. Okay, we had this before. Ha'isha shenodra bin Nazir, Chavdal and Aleph. Where we left off.
not last night, bro. Yesterday morning, yes.
Ha'isha,
Thursday night.
I tell you something. I guess Adar coming. It's in the air. Ha'isha shenodra bin Nazir. A woman made an edapi in Nazir. And she separated her animals. Okay, important to know for today's daf. A woman or a man who's tar and Nazir brings three animals. He brings an oila, a male sheep, because a female sheep is a chatas, and he brings an ayil, a 2-year-old ayil as a shlomim. This is the El Nazir. Accompanying the El Nazir is two types of breads: the kike matzahs, meshuchim bashamin, and there are two types of breads that they bring. There'll be 10 of each. The kohen would get one of each one. I know the shalmei of the nazir is similar to the toida. Carbon toida that you bring also is accompanied by breads. 4 types. 3 of them are matzahs, and 1 of them is chametz. And the kohen gets one of each. Right? He gets one of each. Right?
So you have chametz in this?
No. Only you don't get chametz over here. But however, this shlomim is different than a normal shlomim, because this shlomim is brought for a day and a half. Usually, a shlomim could be eaten for 2 days and a night. This shlomim, a toida, similar to a toida, can only be eaten for a day and a night. We want to maximize the amount of people that can come and partake. So by limiting the amount of time, you guarantee you get more people, because you extend time, then less people can eat it in a longer period of time. So this what happened with this shlomim would be, they would give to the kohen the zroya, the front right foot, and that will be cooked. It's called the zroya b'shela. That will be cooked, and the nazir would cut his hair and put it underneath the pot of this cooking carbon. Derech agav, just because it popped into my mind, one of the sources for shishim is zroya b'shela. You're cooking a shlomim, it has a piece of the kohen's matana there. You're not allowed to eat that matana. They derive it's the ratio of that leg to the rest of the animal is 60, and that's where you get the share of 60. That one of the shares of shoes, it's called zroya b'shela. That right. We've done it in a few times. We mentioned this over the must be those days that you're missing. So we mentioned that a few times. Anyway, though we'd like to believe you. Anyway, so Ha'isha Shenoja Benazir Fisha Sebehem. Does she separate these 3 animals? And now and lo and behold, her husband's made for her. So what happens? Now you have these extra animals. Now what do? Im shaloi hoisa ha-behema. If the behemoths were his, meaning the Gemara is going to have to deal with it. Well, if it's his, then how can it be her carbon? Exactly. How do we go? Then they take them out of this state of being animals, of kachim, and now they're chulin. Goes put them back in the herd, no problem. No taruvis, nothing. They're back in the herd, totally normal. Back in the herd. The imshelah hoisa. The Gemara is going to ask the Masal Constitution Baila, how does she have anything that's her own? Right? Imshelah hoisa abehema. Now, so we have 3 animals. Good. So we should, if they're huz, we should say the same thing, shouldn't we? What should we say? They're all back, correct? We should say they're all back, but we don't say that. Imshelah hoisa hachatus tamus. The chatas dies, because this is a case of chatas shemesa ba'alaha, that you don't need it anymore. We spoke that out. The oila takriv, oila, the oila which can be brought as a present is brought as an oila. In shlomim takriv shlomim, the shlomim is takriv as a carbon shlomim. V'necholum yom echad. So as opposed to a regular shlomim, which was 2 days and a night, this is going to be the shalmei nazir, even though she's not a nazira. It's going to be the Shalmei Nazir, right? She's not a Nazira. However, the Eina Tu'unim Lechem, as opposed to a regular Nazir that is the accompanying breads, accompanying the Shlomim, this would not. This would not be the accompanying breads that accompany what? The Shlomim. Would not be accompanying the Shlomim. there's a very, I found a sefer I have, Shirei Hayom. I didn't realize I had it. Where do you make this distinction between bringing, it has the din of a shlamim, Nazir, because it's a day and a night, but you don't bring breads. You're making a distinction. A regular Nazir brings a shlamim, that's for a day and a night, with these breads. You're going to bring it, it's going to be a day and a night, but forget the breads. Like, where do you make this distinction, right? So the Brisker Rav speaks out beautifully that we find often, not often, we find there are such things as shlamim that's a day and a night. Where do we find that? By a toida. Also, very interesting. This is more appropriate. The korban pesach. What happens if you have a leftover korban pesach? It becomes a shlamim, but it doesn't go to 2 days and a night. The korban pesach is only one night. This shlamim also only be a day and a night. In other words, even since the offspring of the shlamim, it came as a result of a pesach. This shlamim over here, this regular shlamim, comes as an offshoot of Naziris. It's coming as a result of this, and therefore you'll give it this share of a day and a night. The lechem is harmatana. It's not a piece of. It's not a din in the carbon. It's a din in a Naziris. Since it's not a Nazir anymore, there is no what? There is no lechem. So the Brisker Rav, he went ahead and he split the lumdis behind the shlamim and the lumdis behind the lechem. The lechem is har matana. It's as a nazira. Once she's not a nazira, it's no matana. But the shlamim is coming as a result of what? That it was once a shlamim, and we're extending it similar to a pesach that we're extending a shlamim and has the din of a limitation. So to the shlamim that comes about as a result of Shalmei Nazir, we're going to extend. That's the way the Brisker Rav explains this difficult distinction between the two.
What if she separated the kemach already? What if she separated the kemach already? That you just put it back in your house?
L'chayra. Again, I'm not sure off the top of my head. L'chayra. Maybe not. I'm not sure. Okay, now. I'm not sure. I'm not.
What's the difference between his or hers in terms of the?
Okay, so what's the difference between him and hers? Right. Okay, so it's also, that's another great question. L'chayra. What's going on over here? If it's his, they go to Chulin. If it's hers, she's not in the Nazir anymore. It also should go back, right? That's really what you're asking.
She was never in the Nazira?
No. She was in the Nazira. She separated Kabbanis. Husband takes it off. So now, what's happening over here? So he's asking, why shouldn't it be the same as the husband? Once she doesn't need it anymore. Okay, so in other words, we see a Gemara. When it was his, he gave it to her with rights. In other words, if you need it as a carbon, great. But if you're not, I get it back. But he's asking, Ari, l'chayra, once you went ahead and she's not in a Nazir anymore, this carbon is like it was a Nazir b'tois, right? It was Nazir's b'tois. So what's going on over here? So that question the Shuri Yom did deal with. He brought from the Sefer Karen Oira. It's what would you say in Svara? If you had an animal as a carbon, and now it's off the hook. We pass like Beis Hill that kedushay tois is kaddish, right? That's what we pass, yeah. So therefore, but don't you think that once it had that status for that period of time, it would be appropriate to keep that status, right? So therefore, I can understand bringing the oila as an oila, and I can understand bringing what the shlamim as a shlamim, because both one can be bought bin a dove anytime. But what about the chattas? Why is the chattas dying? Why is the chattas dying? Right. So this is what he says over here. That when you are magdish the oil and the shlamim, you are magdish b'chol gavni. Meaning, if I need it for naziris, it'll be for naziris, and if I don't need it for naziris, it'll be l'daira. It'll be what a nadavel. I can always bring. But the chattas, right? She can't say that because you can't be, if your chattas is a chayva, it's a chayv, right? She can't do that over there, right? So therefore, what if the chattas she's not really magdish, right? The chattas then she's not really magdish it. Good. So why is she really magdish it? Because she knows if she doesn't need it, it goes lemisa. One of the five guys, look at me. One of the five chattas shemesa is chattas shemesa by leha. Good. If she's not in the zira anymore, it's like she's dead. So when she's magdish it, let's go. She has in mind, I know that my husband at any point in time can go ahead and be mefer. So what does she say? She says, If it's an oila, you know what? It's either an oila for a nazir or it's an oila as a present. If it's a shlomim, it's either shlomim of an oila or shlomim of a present. Why does she say bechatos? She can't make that. Because why is she going to say? Because she knows if she's out of the picture, then the chatas is dead. It's going to have to die. So she's not magdish the chatas. Good. So really, it should be chulin. What's the reason it dies? What's the reason? Because it retains its shem chatas. Because Amarel is a kaper, Seder is a kaper. That she's a chayta. She's a chayta, right? That's why the Gemara had to come on to the tam of Elisa Kaper, because anyone who's Kadosh Baruch Hu asks enough things on you, you're asking other things on you, and Tumah, you're extending it, so that therefore it remains the chatas for that reason, and therefore it does. So it's very geschmacka. It's a very geschmacka pshat to explain the whole thing. We kind of put it all together. I mean, it's a good thing I found the Shira Yom. I guess this is nice. We didn't even see the Gemara yet. Okay, but it does give you an overview, because guys, we're going to be spending. Do you remember early in the Masechta? What was the first question? Why do we learn the Ziris in Seder Nashim? Really should be in Seder Kachim. You're going to find out why. You're about to find out, because it's mamish chock full of kabbanas. But once the kabbanas, don't be intimidated, because once you get it down, it repeats itself, and we can work with it. Okay, very geschmack, and that's why the brisk is learned in the Ziris, because of the Kachim. In brisk, they do learn the Nazir. Not only Zvachim and Menachas, they learn. They learned this as well. They learned Kachim, and they learned Naziris. Okay, so now continuing the Mishnah. This may help you, Benji. She became a Nazira. She put away money, but she didn't go ahead and designate which money should be for which carbon. So what's the halacha? Yipmun Nadava. That money is going to go in the pushka. Remember, there's a pushka in Masechta Shkalim that was for the Kayetz HaMizbeach. When the Mizbeach was slow, they would go ahead and they would use that. Mois Mefurashin, right? However, if the money was designated, this will be for the oila, this will be the chatas, this will be the shlamim, the mechatas yelchul yam melach. Why? Because it's like in place of the chatas. And just like the chatas dies, so too you're going to throw in the yam melach. This Torah, guys, dafka yam melach, because it's corrosive and it'll go ahead and destroy it, or it means lav dafka yam melach. Anytime it says that, guys, it means it's the rabbanon. You can't have enough from it, but there is no mi'ila. Guys, here's the rule of thumb. Mi'ila is only when it's katshe Hashem. Mi'ila is when there's katshe Hashem. Good? There's katshe Hashem. This is not katshe Hashem, because there's nothing called the mizbeach. The may oila yavi oila. There's a din of milu, because that's katshe Hashem. The may shlamim yavi shlamim. V'nechalim yamechad ve'eintin lechem. It does not need lechem. So Taisus brings a very, very interesting svara of why in fact that you don't need lechem. Look at the Taisus, guys. Right, the medium wide lines, 3 lines down. Hagav ve'einatun lechem kishar, like all the rest. Dichsiv al kapi nazir. It says he put it on the palms of the nazir. The ain't kan kapi nazir, the hefilah. In other words, there has to be in the parsha of Naziris, it has to be that you were a nazir. You have to put the kohen takes this, right, the shayla and this, and he waves it in the kapi in the palms of the nazir. There is no nazir to wave the palms. That's why it doesn't work. That's why it doesn't work. Okay, says the Mishnah. Mantana de Bala Mishtabilo. Obviously, it says that the Baal is not Meshubah to pay for a kabbanis, because he made a distinction between Shaloi and Shalah. Amrav Chista, Rabbanon he. It's the Rabbanon in the following brayso that we're going to see. These Salkadait that Rabbi Yehuda he, if you can say it's Rabbi Yehuda, Amai Teitzi V'Torah Be'eder, Hamishtabidla. In other words, fellas, guys, if he's Meshubah, the husband, to go ahead and pay her kabbanis, then for all intents and purposes, that Shibud, the lien, is on the animals. And therefore, when he takes off the Naziris, that should remain. It should be like hers, and you should have the same halacha of the chatas that should die, right? Why would it go ahead and take the Eder? So it must be that there is no Shibud, that the husband didn't have to do it. Good. The Tanya, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, other maybe carbon asher. Okay, guys, outside. There's some kabbanis that are chatas called chatas oile v'yoyred. Oile means goes up and down. If you look in Vayikra Hey, describes these kabbanis. There's based upon your financial status, you're going to bring these kabbanis. Tumas Mikdash Kadashav, Shvus Bitoy, Mitsoira, Mitzayra, Yoledes. These are kabbanis that depending on your financial status. So let's say this woman has no money, so she can get off the hook with the cheapest, with birds. But he's worth money, right? So he has to bring a carbon usher for her, despite the fact she is an ani, she's on the low end of the financial scale of the totem pole. Nonetheless, he has to bring an usher. Tanya, are you doing there? Adam maybe carbon usher al ishtaya. Adam would bring a carbon usher on his wife. So too, kol carbon aseha she chayeves. He'd have to bring all the carbonas that she's mechayev. Shekach kosevla kol achrayis the islach alai. All achrayis that there is to you on me, min kadma the none from before now. This is what he'd write when he give her a get. When he give her a get, he'd write, I'm off the hook from all the achrayis that I had until now, including what? Carbonis. So l'chayra, shaloi does not exist in this realm because the carbon that he provided for her, all intents and purposes, is hers. It's his shibud. So therefore, it must be the chachamim who argue on this and say what? That he's not mishubid. Then you have to ask a question, then have the chachamim give it to him. But we'll see in a second. So Rabbi Amar, afilutem Rabbi Yehuda, you can even say it's Rabbi Yehuda. Ki mishtabed law. When is Rabbi Yehuda saying mishtubid? That's what Milsa the tzricha. If she mamishni, she's a yoledes. If she ate chaylev, she was mechal Shabbos b'shoigeg. Where is a chiv chatas chayva? Then he's mechayev. But Milsa like tzricha, something she doesn't need anymore. Like now, she's not in a zira anymore. Lie. Maybe Rabbi Yehuda would be more. But it's not mishubid, and therefore it's shaykh shaloi, and therefore it's shaykh. That goes out to the Eidah. That would be one good teretz. A chilik. Again, Rabbi Yehuda, where does he say Rabbi Yehuda says then that's the chatas chiyah, that you have no choice. He's mishubah to go ahead and take care of that. But over here, this is like we're kind of playing it out. She's not in the zira anymore. It's not in the zira anymore. So maybe in this case she doesn't need it anymore. Therefore, we'll say that you don't have to. Kamash that you don't. In a chanami. Ikadiyami, no. Guys, the same question, but the other way. Ikadiyami with Rabbi Yehuda being the Tana with this. Ikadiyami, Mantana, Amrav Chista, Rabbi Yehuda. Who is the Tana of Mishnah Rabbi Yehuda? The Rabbi Yehuda who says that Yachayev, that's when it's Milsa the Tzrichalei. V'chim Shabbat lo Milsa the Tzrichalei. Right? But Milsa the Tzrichalei. Why? The Rabbanon loy mishtabed l'klal. Because according to the Chamim, you're not mishubed at all. And therefore what? So he doesn't have to give anything. Elahechi dami the mishtabed lo. So 1 second, guys. Like the chachamim, if you're not mishubed at all, so how in the world where every case of mishabed law? Kigoin the akna law, he's makna to her. In other words, it's not that he has to do it. He's not mishubed to do it. He does it. What does he do? He's makna the animals to her as a gift. But even the akni law have it in nafsha, and once he went ahead, it belongs to her. Once she did it, belongs to her. Rabbi, a similar teretz afil tem rabbanon is the time of the Mishnah. He makni law nami. When is he makna something to her? In most of the tzrichala. That's something what? So she guys. So therefore, if she's makna her chatos, that's her chatos. It's her animal. But let's say he's makna her chatos when she's in a zero, and she turns out not to be in a zero. So he was makna like almost conditionally. Once the condition you don't need it anymore, it's back to me. It goes back to the herd. And most like tzrichala loy makni. So that's Rav's teretz, guys. The Mishnah could be even called the chachamim. Okay, the chachamim say it's not meshubid. Right, it's not mishubid, right? How if she needs a carbon, what would he do? He'd give it to her as a gift. Good. But when is that? When she ate chaylev, she was machal Shabbos b'shoigeg. But over here, when was he makna to her? When she was in a zero. When she's in a zero. Now that he's made for it, right? Now that he's made for it, yeah. Now that he's made for it, she doesn't need it anymore. He gets it back. You'll ask me a question, Rabbi Stern. 1 second. If he was makna when she's in a zira, isn't that kiyum? How can you make for it? It's not a kiyum. Guys, you hear the kasha? He's makayim in the ziras. She's in a zira. He said, "Oh, here's your carbon. Oh, mufa." By giving it a carbon, it's saying like ani. Remember, ani is your makayim. So look at Tyson. Look at Tyson. Look at Tyson. Look at Tyson.
If you need it, in other words, just like on it's nothing. Can't do that.
The carbon purpose is not.
Upirish Haram, top line of Taisvis. It's not speaking that he gave it to her now when she's in the zira. Dim came kayim la nidra. Guys, if he went ahead and now she's in the zira and gives her the karbanis, Guys, you hear? That's a kiyum of a Naziris, and you won't be able to take it off. Elika going the Allah koiden l'chein yomim rabim im tisricheni l'karbonos. In other words, he says the following: if you'll need it sometime, honey, here's the credit card. No problem. Go ahead, go to the herd. Right? So now what happens? When do we say that? When she taka needs it. When she ate chalev. When she was chal Shabbos b'shoigeg. But now, but she doesn't need it. Why? Because she's no longer Nazira, then it reverts back to being his. That's that. But again, that Taisus is a good kinech, because without the Taisus, it's a kiyum. If he would give it to her now, he's been Mekayim on Naziris. It's very geschmack, guys. The Taisus starts in the Amid Aleph, but it starts in the Amid Aleph. But what you need is Pirish Aram, the top line. Guys, you hear? Guys on Zoom, we get a finger up here. We got it's very, very geschmack, right? Good. Okay. Im shaloh hoisa behemasa, chatas tamas v'oila tikrit. If the behema, if was hers, then it dies, and the oila is being a carbon oila, and the shlamim is a shlamim. Where did she get this from? We have a rule. Whatever a wife gets, right, it belongs to the husband, right? Don't tell this to your wife now, but I'm saying in the old days.
It doesn't take effect anymore.
In the old days.
That's what they call the good old days.
Yeah, the good old days, right? Anyway, so Amara Papa, Kimtsasa Meisasa. From her dough, she was mekamitz. In other words, the husband gave an X amount of money for a week, and she would go ahead and a little bit on the side, but it's hers. Or else, right? Another person gave it to her, and said, "This is yours." That your husband does not have rishus. Those are two ways to acquire something. Either your husband gave it to you, and over time you're able to accrue something, or somebody else gave it to you on a condition. Right? But we said the shlomim is unique, guys. Why? Because it's going to be a shlomim that is only going to be a day, and you're not going to bring any lechem. You're not going to bring any lechem. Okay, now this is an interesting Gemara because it's like missing kind of words over here. Amma Shmuel Avua Bar Ihi said Shmuel to Avua Bar Ihi, Letiyasav al Krayach, do not sit down on your knees. They used to sit down a certain way, literally. Until you explain me this matter. Now it doesn't say what he asked, but from the answer you can ascertain he was saying, give me 4 cases where the shlomim is only going to be for a day and a night. That's what I want to know. 4 cases. Good. That's what he's asking him. Okay. Right. And right. They don't need lechem. Right. They don't need lechem. These are 4 cases that don't need lechem. Right. I said a day. No. These are the cases that the male certainly a day and a night, but they don't need lechem. They don't need lechem. That's the key. So the elu hein arba elim sheinat lechem. These are the 4 rams that do not need lechem. So you could see from this, these are the answer that was the question. You have to kind of insert the question in there, right? It's Jeopardy. Done. Anyway, Shaloi 1, Shalah 2, Shalah Achamisa 3, Ushalah Acha Kapara 4. Shaloi, Shalah, Achamisa Acha Kapara. Shalah Hadamaran. What's the case of Shalah, where she became a Nazira, separated the Kabbanis, husband went ahead was Mefer. In that case, that is going to be a Shlomim that would not require Lechem. Shaloi, Nan. Okay, this is we're going to see later on. Ha'ish Madir Espino Benazir. A man is able to make his son into a Nazir, a cotton. He can make him into a Nazir. Allah Chamash Misinai, a man is able to make his son into a Nazir. However, Ve'ena Isha Maderis Espino Benazir. But she can't. Now, this is provided that 1 or 2 things don't happen. That Gilach, he takes a haircut, or his Kroivim give him a haircut. In other words, he says, you might want to make me into a Nazir, but I'm not buying it. I don't want it. So either he takes a haircut showing he doesn't want to be, or his relatives do that. Micha, even if he doesn't take a haircut, he just makes a macha. He makes a statement, I do not want to be a Nazir. Or they go ahead. Then in that case, he's not a Nazir. Now let's say you separated money for this Naziris. If you had money that we never designated which animal it should be used for. Yiplu in a dava. Then in that case, that money will go to the pushka for the carbon oil to be brought when the mizbeach was quiet. Quiet some mizbeach, the deserted mizbeach. Mois mefurashin, the mechatas yelchul yam melach. The chatas will go to yam melach. The me oila yavi oila umoilim behen because it's kashi Hashem. The me shlamim yaviu shlamim v'nechol yam echad v'nitu lechem. Here's your case. That's the case of shalai. That's the second case. Shalacha misa minalan the Tanya hamafish moislan nazirusai. A person separates his money for his naziris. Like nenin v'lay moilim behen. The rabbanon you can't have enough, but there's no dinam yet. They shein royal lehevi b'kulin shlamim. Okay, a little more kachim, little kachim 101. In order to be a din of moil, it has to be called kachei Hashem. Shlomim is kachim kalim. Kachim kalim before zrika is mom and bailim. Kachim kalim before you do zrika is not kachei Hashem. It's not kachei Hashem. So if I separate money for kabbanos, good, even though ostensibly they're going to be used for kabbanos, which is kachei Hashem, nonetheless, since I could possibly use all this money to buy shlomim, by that it would not be kachei Hashem, and therefore would not be subject to the din of Meila. Okay, so that's we'll get this. We'll see this many times over throughout Shas. Anyway, so says the Gemara that so he separates the money. Mois Naziris, you should have enough of them. Now, here's what we need. Mace, he dies. And money was not designated. Yipnu dava. Then it'll go to the dava to the pushka. Mois mefurashin. Okay, now you have the money that's designated for oil chatas and shlamim independently. Demei chatas. We're accustomed to that already. It's that's a chatas shemesa b'laha. Loinen of loin why? Because it's not kashi Hashem. The may oila yavi oila umoilim behem. It's kashi Hashem. The may shlamim yaviu shlamim v'nachol miyam echad v'netun lechem and no din amila because the shlamim best. So here's your third case. So shaloi, we have the first case of Mishnah of the Nazir that she was Mefer. Second case is what that his father made him a Nazir and there was a macha. Third case is he dies, right? The money was separated. Not only was it separated, it was designated what's going to go to what. In that case, what? The shlamim, the money is going to use the shlamim day and night, no lechem. Finally, ushlacha kapara. Acha kapara doesn't explain the case, guys. So here's lacha kapara, outside. Guy goes ahead, he separates an animal, then he loses it, and he needs he brought his he could have brought his chatas, he could have brought his oilad. He separates a shlamim, he loses his shlamim, brings another one, and this one shows up. Right? So what do you do with this shlamim? You don't need it anymore. So acha kapara, after you bought it already, what do you do with it? You know what you do with it? Shlamim, day and night, lechem. You got all four cases. There you go. Says the Gemara. Okay. Lacha kapara. So after kapara, svarahu. Shlacha misa my tam deleichasi la kapara. If the misa, guys, this is one of 5 chata shemesa, guys. Chata shemesa b'ala, chata shekipra b'ala. So it's a synonymous thing. Just like chata shemesa b'ala, once he dies, no, it's only a day. And it doesn't need a day and night, and it doesn't need lechem, right? So too lacha kapara nami holeichazi la kapara because you don't need it anymore. Fred Gemara b'suleka. There's no more cases. I'll show you there are more cases. For Ika, there is. What's the more cases? What's the more cases? The Tani Levi says Levi. V'shar kol shalmi nazir sheshachtin shaloi kumitzvasan kisherin v'oilin l'baylim shulchayim. Okay, we have a rule in Kachim. The first Mishnah in Zvachim says that Kachim you have to shech shlamim with different machshavas. The same sevach, the same carbon, the same 6 different machshavas you need. If you shech the carbon shaloi l'shma, it's an oila you shech it for shlamim oila, it's a kasha carbon. Aval oila bailam m'shem chayva, the baal's gonna have to bring another one. So you went ahead, you made an adava to bring an oila, and the kohen comes and goes, I messed this up. I thought it was a shlamim, I made it as a shlamim. It's a good carbon. You do the shrik and everything, emurim everything. However, you have to take another one. So watch. Shalmi naza sheshachtin shloi kimitzvasan. The guy made a mistake. Maybe he thought it's a regular shlamim. He didn't know it was a nazir. So he shechted it shaloi k'mitzvasan, right? He could shecht it shaloi l'shma. He didn't bring it right. Shaloi l'shma, ksherin, it's kasha. But it doesn't count. And a cholim yom echad, like a carbon shlami nazir. So for the Gemara, l'chayra, I have a fifth. We have shaloi, shalah. We have har's case of a mishnah. We have the case of shaloi with the father made him into then retracted. We have the case of aracha misa, case of acha kapara. Now we have shaloi l'shmai. So says the Gemara, kimitzvasa kachashiv, shaloi kimitzvasa like kachashiv. Right. So it doesn't need lechem, doesn't need zraya. The four that we're considering are ones that you did correctly. The four that we're considering, the ones you did correctly, we're not considering what? The ones that you didn't do correctly. And over here, you had to do it like a mitzvasa. So, okay, so Zachamid Ravenu, we have at the beginning of a Kachim Dekasugya, the main Indian being that, what do you do when the woman doesn't need it anymore, right? It would still have the halacha of, we'll say that the lumdis, she separated the animals to be, if I need an oila, it'll be an oila. I need a shlamim, it'll be the shlamim. Chatas, she didn't separate. For that reason, you can't do that. The reason why chatas by a nazir you're going to bring is because of a yosa kappa, because if it's a chayta, kosh came to meya, where you're extending the naziris beyond 30 days, you're a chayta, you extended more. We saw earlier in Masechta, you might even regret your naziris, and therefore you're gonna go ahead and bring the carbon. However, that carbon is not gonna, it's gonna be like a shlamim, but not nazir, but not. It's gonna be like a shlamim nazir that what is since it was supposed to be the limitation of the day and the night, you'll have that limitation. But since it doesn't need lechem, because you can't be mekayim al kape, right? And we have the Torah, the Biskarah, a beautiful Torah, that really it's not a chelik of the carbon, it's the chelik of the naziris. And she's not a nazir anymore. You don't have the naziris. Okay, we have other cases. Bez Hashem. Tomorrow morning, share will be sometime in the morning. I'll let you know.